Our first speaker today on the issue of humanity in all of its various manifestations is Toby Greenberg. Toby is a conceptual mixed media artist whose work is immersed in the criminal justice system, with a focus on the history and the continued use of capital punishment in the United States. Her show, called Served: Wrongful Convictions and the Death Penalty, has won several awards, including Best in Show, earlier this year at the 62nd Annual Juried Competition at the Mazer Museum of Art in Monroe, Louisiana. This work was recently shown by Toby at the City Gallery in New Haven. So please welcome to Justice Southbury, Toby Greenberg.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Rick, for inviting me today, and for all the work that you've been doing all these several Sundays, I suppose. So my work as an artist, I began as a photographer many years ago, but my work evolved over the years, and I started doing more mixed media. I call it conceptual art, meaning that I use whatever medium seems to fit with the idea that I have. And my work has always kind of worked with social justice causes. I've been doing this for about 30 years now. And people always say to me, how did you get involved with working on the death penalty, per se? So I have to always share the same story. And the way it started was that in 1995, I was invited to be in an exhibition about the book. And I was not a book artist. I had no idea what I was going to do. I'd never even taken a basic bookbinding class. So one evening I happened to have the news on, and they were reporting someone's last supper, that what they had requested, but which they were not served. And it was the last meal that the person was offered the day before they were to be executed. So this caught my attention for so many reasons, one of which was, why are we reporting this on the evening news? So there was this curiosity on my part. I didn't understand much about the death penalty or Last Suppers, which has been a very long tradition. So I started to look into it. And well, long story short, what came out of it was an idea for a book. I started doing research on people who had been executed and what they had or requested as their last meal of choice, and found that virtually every state that offers a last meal and still executes you the next day records for state records. They release the information to the media, and I found that very interesting. Like, why do we care? Why is this reported? What is that about? And to me, there was this voyeuristic aspect to it, which was very unnerving to me. And it's why it was reported at the end of the news as a human interest story. Anyway, I started to find that there were, all these states recorded it, and then reported to the news, and the news would report it in the papers or on the evening news. And what came out of it was this piece, which I called The Menu, and it's a book, and it went into the book exhibit that I was invited into, and it's a collection of Last Suppers, which were requested, served, eaten by, or not eaten in some cases, by people who were executed. And what I found was that people were very moved by this. I felt it led to conversation from people who were on many sides of the aisle. They could be pro or against, but they seemed to find a common ground in learning about people and their humanity. So some of the meals are things that people probably never had before in their lives. And so they are something like fried rabbit, lobster. And then it goes to the comfort food like macaroni and cheese. Anyway, you're all welcome to take a look at this. I'll leave it on the table here. You can peruse it. But the work that I really want to talk about more today is my current work, which is called Biography Unwritten, which Rick mentioned, and which was just in an exhibit in City Gallery in New Haven. And that work is about wrongful convictions and the death penalty. And I came to that, I came to work on that because as I was researching about the death penalty, I kept coming across stories about people who were wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death, and hopefully later found innocent and exonerated. And I found that it wasn't just a one-off thing. It wasn't like just one random person, which I and other people could then excuse and say, well, you know, it happens. No, it happens a lot. So statistically, they say that for every 8 people who are executed, 1 person is exonerated. And it doesn't count people who, you know, were never lucky enough to be released and exonerated. So it makes you think. So I started this piece, and I work from the Death Penalty Information Center's database of people who are, they're on their database as people who are innocent and have been released and exonerated. And there are 201 names on that list. And I work from that list, and I research each person, and I create a book, a unique book for that person, an artist book. So in this case, this is a fellow named Clifford Booney Williams, Jr. And what I've done is I make a book that is a unique book. I do a lot of research about the person. I start from the time of their arrest up until the time they're exonerated, reading numerous newspaper accounts and various other reports about what's happened to them. So I try to create a book that you would want to pick up and look at and say, oh, this must be a biography about this person. The subtitle is usually taken from something that the person might have said or something they were about before they became entangled in the criminal justice system. So I'm hoping that you would pick up, a viewer would pick up a book. They're on display. They sit on shelves. Behind me is a stack of anonymous books, I call them, and they are just books that are stripped of a cover. They're just glued shut, as is this book. So I glue and cement the book shut to represent time lost while incarcerated, lives lost, years lost, experiences lost. On the back page, they call the epilogue, is something unique to that person, which from my research I found they missed during their time of imprisonment. So for Clifford Booney Williams, Jr., who felt that God was on his side, he never stopped believing that God would help him be exonerated. But what he missed, and I should also say that every book starts with the prompt missed. So then I work on that. I research it. I figure out what they missed that was personal and unique to them because they're real people. So they're individual real people. So I try to make each one unique. So in this case, Clifford Booney Williams Jr. missed his son, who died in a motorcycle crash on his way home from visiting him in prison. He missed attending his son's funeral, and he missed a life without regret. So to me, that's, again, very personal to him. And I hope, and what I find is it helps people, viewers, to start thinking about what they might miss if this tragedy happened to them. Below that is information about each particular person. In this case, wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death in 1976, resentenced to life in prison in 1980. That's not usually the case, by the way. He was incarcerated for over 4 decades. 4 decades of being wrongfully convicted. He was exonerated in 2019. And I always give credit to the state. Credit. Florida State Prison, Rayford, Florida. So I invite you all to come up. I brought a few examples of the books. I displayed them on these kind of anonymous bookshelves. They hang on a wall. I don't think I have it handy, but I do have some examples of how the show looks when it's hung. And as of right now, I have 32 books completed. My goal is to make a book for every person who's been exonerated, and to date, that's 201 names. So hopefully I've introduced it to you. I'm going to be around a little while if you have questions, or you feel free, please, to come up, handle the books. You feel free to look at them. And thank you for your time.
Yeah. Woo!